Welcome again. This is Suraj Chandrasekharan, Director of Sales and Solution Engineering at Versa Networks. In this particular session, we are going to go over how Versa SaaS solution provides complete protection to your data, specifically in the cloud, wherever and everywhere the user is accessing it from. We do that by providing granular control using our CASB and DLP solution suite. So once again, how did we get here? The users are able to get to a specific location using wherever they are, right? So if they are in branch location, they need to access their cloud application. If they are in remote location, they still need to access their cloud application, wherever their application content resides. So specifically, they need to be, whenever they're accessing a specific application, your next-gen firewall, let's say if they're not allowed to access box.com, it can block box.com. But then when you want to provide granular control on the activity that need to be performed or allowed to and disallowed, that is where the cloud access security broker or CASB comes into the picture to provide granular control on a specific activity that the user is allowed or not allowed to do so. And also, when you talk about data loss, once again, when you do all these analysis of the files, you can look for content if it is malicious by using your file and other mechanisms that we talked about during the security presentation. So you will be able to see whether a certain file is malicious using all the other mechanisms. But then what about whether the file actually conforms to your standards, conforms to your regulatory controls, conforms to your HIPAA and other compliance standards, or whether it actually has something sensitive to actually make sure a specific user does not have access to that particular document. So all of that is where the DLP engine comes into picture, and Versa in fact supports both of them using both inline as well as out-of-band methods. So our whenever traffic comes to the SaaS gateway, we'll be able to process those access, whether it is going to a SaaS application or be able to scan the engine, scan for documents in real time, using our inline CASB and DLP functions. But also, whenever the user actually accesses using his own BIOD device, if he is actually trying to access a specific application, you still want to provide a control on what he is allowed to do so while he is actually accessing such applications. So that is where the out-of-band CASB and the DLP functions come into play. Some of the top use cases for CASB are actually listed here, but my personal favorite, if you ask me, actually is uncovering the shadow IT applications. So for example, if the user is not allowed to access a certain set of application, let's say according to your corporate file sharing program, box.com is allowed and Dropbox is not allowed. So if the access was, in fact, the user was actually trying to access something and by default you had some access to box.com, then you want to make sure the content that is uploaded or downloaded from one file sharing application is not actually accessed to or passed on to the other. So you want to be able to provide controls and visibility to such shadow IT. And the other thing that is also my personal favorite is being able to keep track of all the activity that the user is actually doing. So in terms of what kind of normal behavior that he actually exhibits when he's actually accessing from a certain location. For example, I am as a user coming in from San Jose, tend to day in, day out, access a certain type of destination or application. But then suddenly I increase the amount of my application access, or I start accessing a lot more applications or start to download more content. So this behavior change is something that we can actually keep track of using our CASB, which can use our AI and ML algorithms to figure out this risky behavior, flag it appropriately to the IT administrator who can then take corrective action. So these two, in fact, are my personal favorites among our CASB application. So in fact, Versa provides support for around 250 plus cloud SaaS applications today. So for our demonstration, I have categorized them into 3 different categories: file and storage application, mail or collaboration applications, and the social media or streaming applications. So especially when you talk about file storage, we actually have, I have Box and Dropbox as an example. I'll actually go over our configurations in a short while to see what we can do and what we cannot do, as well as with the mail and collaboration. I'm going to take an example with Gmail, as well as, and then when we go through social media, I'm going to show how we can do so for Facebook and YouTube as well. So in our policy here, under the same security engine that you have seen in our the security session, here you'll see that I have preset some configuration. So in fact, Versa, like I said, we are able to add 250 plus applications that we can detect today. And for each one of them, I can come up with a list of activities that are allowed or denied. For Dropbox, for example, these are the different activities that we can detect and be able to appropriately allow for a specific user coming from a specific location using a specific device. So here I have specified Dropbox to be allowed in general. Basically, the login activity is allowed, and I'm allowed to even download some content, but upload and share is being blocked. And similarly for box.net, I by default blocked login. So the user basically cannot log in, but I also have other things that I also have blocked, like delete and search and share. So even if he actually has logged in before even accessing our SASE gateway, all the other activities will be blocked for this particular user. Let me also go show a few other configuration also. For YouTube, for example, we can look at each of these different activities. So here I have set commenting and search operation to be blocked and everything else to be allowed. And similarly, when we go to Facebook, I have blocked download and upload and chat and file transfer. For G Suite, I have blocked a few things and so on. So let's see in action what happens when the user tries to access a few things. So I'm going to use the same.
Before you do that, you're allowing download, and you're potentially allowing upload, and that's great. But what do you do? Do you inspect the downloaded data or the uploaded data for things that shouldn't be there? For example, before you upload, can you inspect the data to see if it says confidential anywhere, or it contains PII or HIPAA data or any other number of pick your favorite regulatory data?
Absolutely. So I'll actually take
Can
the
you show a demo of
shortly.
that? Because showing us you're blocking upload and download is just a URI thing.
Of course.
It's really, I would rather see actual looking at content.
Definitely. So I have two different sections, the CASB and the DLP. So specifically your question will be addressed in the second part of my session. So hold your thought there. I'll get back to you shortly on that. So here, what I'm going to be doing is access box.com first. So when I access box.com and I click on this login operation, let's see what happens. I have this particular user actually logged into our SASE gateway. So here you can see that the login activity was detected by our CASB engine and appropriately be blocked. Now, when this particular access basically triggers a notification to our analytics engine. So the user basically gets, IT administrator gets notified. And if this is initially an unsanctioned application, which the user, IT administrator wants to make it as a sanction for a specific user, he can do so based on the notification that he gets. Let's actually wait for that. But before that, I want to show the Dropbox portion as well.
Is this the same agent? Your SASE client is the same? Okay, so it's all the same agent. We're not talking about multiple agents. Okay.
Correct. That's exactly the same agent. So this is in fact another differentiation with some of our other competitors. In fact, so we have both our access to private as well as to public destinations using the same SASE client, using the same gateways which process traffic for both private as well as public destinations.
Can I just jump on there? So it's the same agent. Do you have multiple modules or other things that have to get downloaded or pushed to the agent depending on which components are being enabled, or is everything pushed all at once and does it all at one time?
It's all just pushed as one. So you basically, the only thing that gets pushed to the user is basically the profile. The profile basically defines what kind of encryption methods that he needs to use to connect to which set of gateways that he can access, as well as the prefixes that gets pushed to him so that he can access a specific private or public destination. The applications, if you actually want to do a traffic sharing based on application or based on FQDNs that he can allow to access from the client, all of those policies are pushed, but nothing else from the SASE, from the DLP or CASB functionality perspective. Everything happens at the gateway.
Thank you.
Sure. So within Dropbox, if you remember, I was allowed to download some content. So I'm going to try downloading. So here you can see that the document got downloaded. But then when I try to upload any content, our engine basically figured out that the user is actually doing an upload activity and appropriately basically blocks the user. And similarly, when I tried to share some content, which was also as a policy that I set, you were able to identify that particular activity and appropriately block the user from being able to share that particular content. And let's actually go over to Gmail, which I've set for certain policy here. Let me try to make an attachment. Once again, on Gmail, he basically was able to identify that I was trying to upload a file, which basically was blocked, and appropriately, I have to delete that before I can send an email to someone. So this basically shows how we can look for certain activity within a specific application and appropriately block that activity. I'm also going to be able to show you quickly the DLP function. So to answer the question that came from the...
Quick question, does it also work for the quiz?
For what, sorry?
The protocol quiz that Google is using for the
quick protocol.
Yeah.
I'll let our security architect answer that.
Yeah, support for quick protocol is in our roadmap. So currently we actually block the quick protocol on the firewall. So then the application automatically switches to HTTPS or TLS based download.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Anu. Okay, let me change over my policy from CASB to DLP, and then I'll be able to show the DLP function, basically looking for additional sensitive content within the documents that are being downloaded or uploaded. But before showing the actual demo, let me also go over the capabilities that we actually have. So within our DLP profile, we actually have a lot of predefined content analysis. So we can actually look for PCI, HIPAA, US financial or PII information or GLBA. So basically all of this pre-canned ones will be able to allow, look for content that is considered to be sensitive and appropriately allow a block from the user, from a specific user. So you'll be able to use our content analysis engine to be able to do so. We also do fingerprinting to say if a certain file was supposed to be not be modified or allowed to be modified only to a certain extent, we'll be able to keep track of that. So a use case could be where you actually have a patent document. So someone actually downloads it and makes some changes and uploads it to thinking that the change document will not be caught. We'll be able to keep track of that using the threshold so to see how much the document has been changed and appropriately be able to identify. We'll be able to look for content within the optical character using our optical character recognition from images. So we can scan for images, look for the content, sensitive content within the image, and then compare that against a sensitive pre-canned or using the user-defined sensitive values to be able to then appropriately allow or disallow that particular file. We also have exact data match. So using our exact data match, we actually can make sure that you define what is basically sensitive. The user using his credit card, going to a social shopping website, and then trying to do some shopping should not be categorized as a credit card or PCI payment card information violation. You want to look for certain documents being transacted and look for the sensitive content within that document. So we do support exact data match for that as well. So
sorry to interrupt. Can I ask a question about the content analysis? So that's where it's going in, inspecting a file or something like that and finding what appears to be sensitive data, something like that?
That is exactly correct.
And can it do that in the context of multiple languages and multiple cultures?
Yes, absolutely. So we do support a list of languages today. We are able to actually do character encoding as well to be able to understand multi-character encoding as well to be able to then figure out what sensitive content it was and then appropriately be able to detect the sensitive nature of that document.
So it would know the difference and recognize that my SIN, my social insurance number, is the equivalent of SSN, social security number, things like that?
Absolutely. So we do have a US-based content analysis. and other country-based as well. So every country, for example, I come from or belong to India, so which actually uses Aadhaar card as a user ID, right, instead of social security number. So we are able to base it on a specific region. We are able to come up with the actual sensitive content and look for such sensitive content as well. Yes.
And you're looking at the actual data there, so the format of a SIN, not just the word SIN or
Exactly.
SSN.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That was a great question. And we were talking about the exact data match, and then of course, in addition to the pre-canned ones, we can actually come up with the user-defined content analysis as well. So you can actually define what is sensitive to you. So we actually support regex patterns as well as keywords that could be matched. So here you can see the regex match could be ** something. So in your company header, by the way, talking about the document scanning, we could do the content within the document body or the header or the metadata to be able to figure out what was sensitive. For example, this actually helps us to understand the sensitivity labels within Azure or Microsoft information protocol as well, to be able to figure out what is defined to be sensitive. We'll be able to look for that within the particular document here. In this particular example, I'm saying Globex ** company, followed by sensitive or confidential, anywhere within 100 offset between each other, 100 character offset between each other is to be considered as sensitive. So any document that matches this will be considered sensitive and appropriately be able to be allowed or disallowed for a specific user. And the last capability that, in fact, I wanted to highlight was the different activities that we can perform. We can, of course, alert or allow or block, that anyone can do, right? But in addition to that, we can actually provide a justification to say, okay, this particular content should be justified before accessing that. And we can also do redaction. We can also just hide or change it with a special character, just a sensitive portion of that particular document. If you see a social security number, just change the social security number or masquerade that portion of the document alone. And we'll also be able to provide labeling. We'll also be able to do encrypting and saving that in uploading to a separate location or quarantining the file and notifying the IT administrator. So all of that is today available with our engine.
Excuse me, when you say masquerade or not show, are you using HTTP tricks, or are you actually editing it out?
I'll let our CTO answer that.
Yeah, so we do basically something called as format preserving encryption, which is using which we would encrypt the traffic.
Can you clarify a little bit about what the requirements are on justification? Is it similar to the previous with the URL filtering, where it's just an empty text file or a blank text box that you type into, or does it do any other kind of validation to justify sending out something that would normally need to be blocked?
I'll actually let our CTO answer that as well. Do you want to explain about the justification?
The justification
method for DLP. So today we have the notification where we can actually provide the justification. In addition to that, are we planning to do anything else?
Yeah, so we have like a full proxy enabled when we do the DLP. So we have a mechanism to provide advanced policy actions that would allow the user to interact. We do like allow certain amount of input to be provided by the user when we enforce the action, right? Specifically with the URL filtering, we are able to redirect the user to a page where the user can actually provide a justification page, a message which can be audited. We can also integrate with an external captive portal, which actually goes through a workflow where, when the user says, okay, enters a message and says, okay, then it triggers a ticket or some kind of a notification to the administrator, and then the administrator can approve or reject. Then based on that, the user gets the feedback that they are indeed allowed to access the file or download or upload the file and continue with the action. So these kind of integrations would be possible, especially given that we are actually full inline proxy. So we actually control, both sides, both arms of the proxy, the client side connection and the server side connection. So we are able to then, when the user is actually trying to upload, we can actually completely receive the file, or when they're trying to download, we can actually download the file completely on the other side, while actually managing the user experience on the other side of the proxy arm, and then be able to interact, provide the interactive capability, and then provide various different flexible enforcement options. That's right.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you, sir. So let's quickly show a demo of that as well, right? So let me make sure I change the policy. Okay, that's the DLP profile. Okay, so now let me just make sure I create a new session. That way it goes through our engines again. Okay, so let me go to gmail.com again, log into my profile. I'm going to download sensitive content from an attachment within the email. Or actually, let me also upload this time. Okay, I'm going to choose something like HIPAA. So this one is actually within a text file that is appropriately being blocked by our DLP engine. I'm going to also do one more on Dropbox. And we can support, by the way, any kind of methods, HTTP, web protocols, or email protocols. Okay, this one, let me try to download some content. Let's say the CVV CC credit card number. So this particular document is expected to have a credit card number. If I try to download it, you can see the last few bytes were not delivered to the user and appropriately be identified by our DLP engine as something that contains sensitive information. So let's see how that looks in our analytics. So here you can see all the different activities or different applications that I did across for when I did CASB. So let's say for Dropbox, you can see the activities that were dropped and the activities that were allowed. So each of the different activities that were performed by a specific user at a specific gateway from a specific location, all of that is being logged in our analytics engine to show the actual information to the IT administrator who might be doing an audit for that. Here it also shows all the different pre-canned regulatory or compliance thing that were matched against. So here you can see the social security number was identified within a document and a full name and street address and so on. So what we in fact provide is not the actual sensitive content within analytics. We'll be able to show how what was in fact found out within the specific engine, specific document, and provide that. And we do not, because we do parallel processing using all our content analysis engines. So in certain cases, you might be able to see a certain document can be matched against multiple different sensitive content as well. So all of that will be reported simultaneously to the analytics engine. So that's pretty much what I had under our content analysis engine. Content analysis.
Question. Question. Can you control traffic file transfer to the USB drive or via FTP or SMB using the client that is installed in the device?
Let me have our security architect address that.
Yeah, so the Versa endpoint client does not have the capability to restrict any kind of like device level activity to an external storage. However, we do have integration with MDM, and we also support labeling the documents. In these examples, for example, we can define policies in such a way that in the MDM, the USB storage is actually disabled for the device, and we can actually check with the MDM policy and if the device is in compliance. And if that information is included as part of our endpoint information profile to the gateway, and we can recognize that, and based on that, we can, restrict the user from either allowing to download the user from, permit the user to download the file to the machine or not. The second level of integration we have is with the Microsoft information protection labels. So based on the document scan, we can actually tag the label with the appropriate value that the enterprise has defined. Then when the document is downloaded to the endpoint, based on the label settings in the Azure information protection, the Windows operating system itself will restrict the user from either copying the file to a USB storage or even taking screenshots or copying to clipboard and stuff like that.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sunil. So that's pretty much what we had under our CASB DLP. Any last questions before we call it a wrap?
Yeah, I've got one about the flow that happens after you've detected that there's an issue. So if so when you detect that someone's trying to do something, generally it's because people are just trying to do their job. Most of the time, they're not actually trying to be malicious. So what do you provide to be able to guide people in a direction that allows them to do what they're trying to do? Because you've detected clearly they want to do a thing. What sort of intervention can I have after that, rather than just saying, no, you can't do that, ring your systems administrator?
So that's a great question, in fact. So that goes into the actual activity as well as the actual application that the user is accessing, what was sanctioned and what's not sanctioned, right? So by default, the user thinks, in this particular case, Box was sanctioned. So I try to log into Box and try to maybe share some file to another colleague or a third-party organization, which I was supposed to be, and I tried to use that. But then it was identified as something that was blocked. But because he's actually that customization, the notification that you received can be customized to say, hey, Box is not a sanctioned application. Use Dropbox instead to do the same thing. So that message that you can actually customize within the notification will give the user the guidance to perform that activity that they can perform using an alternate method. So because you can control that notification and customize it, you basically can target the user to any other activity that they can perform. And similarly, within a specific content that they are trying to download, for example, right? So let's say they are actually with the DLP engine, they try to download something, and they see that, okay, this particular file actually contains some social security numbers. So you could actually provide that information in the notification again to say, hey, this was blocked because this particular thing was sensitive. So you could actually figure out or talk to your manager to give you that authority or be able to get that clearance. So that notification still can be provided to the user. That way he understands what he did wrong and why it was blocked, and the recursive or recourse to actually take an alternate action so that he can get access to whatever he is supposed to be.
So Suraj basically spoke about CASB and DLP, but then we also there are other reasons why people can be blocked. For example, you would have heard things like impossible travel, superhuman travel, superhuman behavior. The same person basically accesses from two different geographies, because once he was doing through VPN and once he was doing natively. Okay. The second one is basically he's going to infrequent, like he's going to some destinations which he normally doesn't go to. Bulk delete or bulk downloads from SharePoint. He normally downloads 2 files. Now he's downloading 50 files for some reason. So what we do is definitely, I think one of the questions is this was maybe genuine. You don't want to basically block him completely. Okay. Right. So what we do is, all the information, all the log messages go to the Versa Analytics. From there, it goes to what is called as WANI, which is Versa Advanced Network Insight, which has got our UEBA component. So that basically is doing all this baselining and trending. And then it computes something called as a user confidence score. And then basically that user confidence score is basically sent through a VMS to the Versa WAS devices. And now what happens is the WAS devices, basically in all of our security policies, they are matching based on the Versa, the user confidence score as well. And when the user confidence score of a user is poor, what happens is that we would re-authenticate the guy. You would make him do MFA. He has to do multi-factor authentication again. And what we also do is we basically invalidate his cookies, for SaaS services. So for example, if he was going to SharePoint or if he was going to Salesforce, so we would basically invalidate all those cookies. So as a result, what happens is that, and all his ongoing sessions will continue to work. So what we are basically making, we are double checking here. Are you the same person? Is your device, are you using are you still in the possession of the device? But we will not just cut him loose, cut him out completely. And we will restrict certain operations which he gets from. Definitely, as Mike and Kelly spoke today, we will not be able to show you because of the amount of time. But this is something which we do have. And basically, where based on the UEBA, we compute a score and we limit, what the user can do.
Yeah. Thanks, Apro.
Yeah.
Any last questions before we call it a wrap?
I have a quick one. Are you using, or can I bring in third-party of these content analysis descriptions, like what is a national identifier, what are they called in these 100 countries, or is this curated list something that we have to build or that you have built on your own?
So we currently have built all of that for different languages, different geographies, and so on. We do provide a third-party feed, but I'll let security architect add color to that.
Yeah, so we have a lot of flexible options when it comes to content analysis, right? So we provide both predefined and user-defined, right? Where the predefined is something the Versa security research team already defines using the same constructs and capabilities that are available in our DLP engine. And you can, the customer can also define, all the match criteria based on the constructs, the same construct that the Versa security research team is able to. And in addition to that, we can also integrate with other content analysis engines. We support both REST API and ICAP-based export of the files. So once we extract the file out of the network traffic, we are doing our own content analysis. And then depending on certain conditions and criteria, then we can actually submit the file again to a cloud-based scanning, or to another enterprise DLP infrastructure product that can do specific content analysis, right? So so sometimes when in the cloud, we actually have access to more resources. So if you want to do some machine learning based processing, or if we have a very low end gateway on-prem that doesn't have the capacity to do optical character recognition, then we submit the file to the cloud. But then we actually do have the ability to do certain amount of scanning on the device itself. And once it fits that criteria that, okay, this needs further inspection, then we can actually then submit to a cloud-based DLP or an enterprise DLP product as well.